Hey, good evening, fantasy managers. This is Devo1099 from Fantasy Football Backers, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, with Gameweek 22 selections on Mondogoal. We're going to go through a few pretty quickly. We've got some really interesting ideas this week. The typical teams that we would take players from, such as Chelsea and Manchester City, and even Arsenal, they don't have the best matchups. Of course, they're still likely to score, but the way that the budget works with Mondogoal is those players are already going to have high values. So unless they're in a particularly good situation, it's not always great to use players from Chelsea and Manchester City. We would still take Diego Costa. He's always a threat to score and one of the more likely players to score across the Premier League. But overall, we're sort of avoiding those teams this week. In lieu of them, we really like players from West Ham, from Liverpool, from Tottenham. Those seem to be the guys that we are turning to most often. So we're going to start with our keeper, and that's Adrian with West Ham. Hull City lost Jelavic and Abel Hernandez. They were already a pretty weak attack. You take those two players away, and they're an extremely weak attack. Plus, they are away from home, heading to Upton Park. Adrian should have a very good chance at a clean sheet. Might get a couple saves just by virtue of the flow of the game, but we really like Adrian. And then also Hugo Lloris draws Sunderland at White Hart Lane. Lloris is one of the best keepers in the world. He is trying to get to a Champions League caliber club, and may not happen this transfer window, but he's certainly going to have that on the top of his mind. We expect him to play quite well. In defense, we're going to look to two defenders that have been fairly disappointing of late, and that's Leighton Baines and Seamus Coleman of Everton. Everton had a very disappointing loss midweek in the FA Cup at Upton Park against West Ham, losing in penalties. Just a really crushing defeat. But they have a good chance to come back and get a win in the Premier League and focus on that domestic play. They draw West Brom, who with Tony Pulis have played a little bit better, and Berahino has been scorchingly hot. But Everton still has a chance to keep a clean sheet there, and Coleman and Baines should be able to get into advanced positions and pile up some fantasy points in the attack. We also like Jenkinson and Cresswell from West Ham. As we mentioned, we don't think Hull poses much of a threat to score on West Ham, and Cresswell and Jenkinson will just send in crosses all day, and one of those is bound to find Andy Carroll's head or enter Valencia, and they have a good chance to get some points on top of a potential clean sheet. And midfielder, we're going to look at Raheem Sterling is back for Liverpool after holiday in Jamaica, and he should have some fresh legs and should hopefully be able to do something creative in the final third against Aston Villa. Villa's tough at home. They certainly could keep a clean sheet or keep Liverpool to one goal, but if Liverpool gets a goal, I'm willing to bet that it's going to be Raheem Sterling involved in some capacity. I expect him to reward Rodgers for allowing him to rest and coming out and playing hard and doing something of note. El Haro Aliyah is a very cheap option that we can use at midfield. He is the Dutch national brought over from Werder Bremen from Bundesliga. Aliyah's got the start in the first match that he was eligible to play in, and he performed okay. He only had a little over 3 Mondogoal fantasy points, but that doesn't mean that he isn't capable of getting 4 or 5, or even if he's able to score a goal, then more than that. And he's he's got a value that is extremely attractive at just 3.9 million pounds. If Aaliyah is in the starting 11 for Southampton, we have to take a nice long look at him because he would allow you to take virtually whoever you want at forward and midfield on Mondogoal. Speaking of forwards, we can't really finish this without talking about Harry Kane. He has been absolutely unreal, and now his value has gone to the point where he has to be unreal to justify the budget that it's going to cost you. But Sunderland is not the team is going to stop the Hurricane, as they have started calling him. Kane should pile up the points for Tottenham. We expect him to find the net once again, and at 13.3 million pounds, he's not inexpensive. He's actually more expensive than Costa, who we also like, as we mentioned earlier. But if you can afford Kane, he's got a very good chance to make it worth your while. One other player that we want to mention before we go is Enter Valencia. Valencia is just as talented as Carroll, probably as talented as Diafra Sakho, who is away at African Nations Cup. Valencia is starting. He has that 2-goal upside that you really want out of your forwards, but he only comes at 6.4 million pounds on Mondogoal. So that's an extremely reasonable price for the potential. It seems like he should be able to get you 5 or 6 points, even if he doesn't get involved in a goal or do anything that's particularly helpful. He'll get a couple shots off, hopefully on target, and I think Valencia has the potential to really have a breakout game. One last note we want to make is Arsenal loaned out Yaya Sanogo to Crystal Palace this week. He is listed on Mondogoal as an Arsenal player. However, if he plays for Crystal Palace, which we think he's going to start, and you do a full week for the entire week 22, you can play Sanogo, and he has a reasonable price. He's about the same price as Enter Valencia. We would probably prefer Valencia. But if you're in a large league, a large contest with, you need a differential, Yaya Sanogo has the ability to score goals. We've seen him do it before. He didn't get a lot of pitch time for Arsenal, but that isn't that damning a statement. That's a very difficult side to get time, it's particularly in attack where they're loaded. Sanogo is a good player, and we expect him to start scoring some goals for Crystal Palace, and it could start as soon as this weekend. Wish you the best of luck out there in Game Week 22. If you have any questions, ask us in the comments section, and check out fantasyfootballbackers.co.uk and stay up to date with any team news or information that we find across the net. Best of luck. Go get them.